Good morning, beloved. It's Thursday morning. I believe this is April 16th. Today is day 3, the last day for the Together for the Gospel Conference, T4G. Be wrapping up early this afternoon. The first speaker this morning is a guy named H.B. Charles, who is an outstanding preacher. He is from Jacksonville, Florida. My family, along with Chris Crone's family, had the opportunity to sit in under his preaching a couple years ago for spring break, and I know Chris and Natalie and their family have been back, I think, once since then. If you get a chance to check out that live stream this morning, I would highly recommend it. HB is a gifted man of God. It's awesome. If you're curious about that, get a hold of me, and I can send you the link and the password so that you can access that. So yesterday, I asked you to take a look at Galatians. By the way, my hair is wild. Looking forward to when Tara opens up her shop again and can do haircuts. Hurting over here. I asked you to look at Galatians chapter 2 yesterday. Just a couple of interesting things from that. Again, Paul is defending his apostleship here to these churches in the region of Galatia. He is criticizing strongly those who have perverted the gospel as he taught it, as it was taught to him by Jesus Christ. People have come in after him and have perverted the gospel, have made it something other than salvation by faith alone, by the grace of God alone. They have added something to that. They have brought in these rules, the law, right? The old system under Judaism, the old covenant. And Paul has said, hey, how could you have so quickly left what you were taught? In chapter 2, Paul defends himself. It's an interesting thing. He has to defend his apostleship. He has to defend the gospel that he has been teaching, and so that's what he does in these verses. He makes clear that Jesus Christ entrusted him with the gospel for Gentiles, for non-Jewish peoples, and that's who he took it to. There's an interesting section here beginning in verse 11 that says that when Peter came to Antioch, Paul says, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. Peter, of all people, bold, fearless Peter, somehow had slipped into this practice of kind of hanging out with his Jewish buddies and ignoring the Gentiles. It says that he separated himself because he feared those from the circumcision party. So that would mean that the Jewish believers. It says even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. Paul says, but when I saw that they were deviating from the truth of the gospel, which is that it's for all peoples, Jews and Gentiles, it says he told Cephas, which is Peter, in front of everyone, if you who are a Jew live like a Gentile and not a Jew, how can you compel Gentiles to be like Jews? So he's saying there, hey, if you of all people are not acting like a Christian, you're not acting like a Christ follower, you're acting like a person from the world, then how can you expect people from the world to live like or want to be Christ followers? So it says he opposed him to his face. You can kind of imagine that scene. Hopefully Peter responded to that in humility and submitted to that godly word from Paul. And then Paul gets into this section starting in verse 15, where he's talking about the law and being justified by faith in Christ and not by the works of the law. A verse that I spent a lot of time thinking about and journaling and writing my way through was verse 19, that says, for through the law I died to the law, that I might live for God. I spent a lot of time going, what does it mean that through the law he died to the law? what that means is that the law reveals sin. Okay? The law was never made because no one can follow the law perfectly. Following the law can't make you righteous because you can't follow it perfectly. Only Christ could follow it perfectly. And so the law doesn't make you righteous. The law reveals your sin. The law reveals various places that, I can't keep that. I can't keep that. I can't keep that. I can't keep. It just reveals our sin. So Paul writes, for through the law I died to the law. The law reveals sin, so that he might live for God. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. That's kind of a little bit of a synopsis of chapter 2. Chapter 3, I want to encourage you to read that today and to do a little bit of thinking and journaling on that. You are going to find chapter 3, probably you're going to find it confusing and wordy, but work your way through it. Think through it. Bear in mind that Paul wrote, as you're reading, as you're reading chapter 3, bear in mind that Paul wrote this letter to the churches of Galatia who were struggling with this notion of what is the law then, right? If the law is not dead but fulfilled through Christ, and salvation is now through faith in Christ alone, by the grace of God alone, then what is the law anymore, right? What does the law mean? What does it matter? And so they're struggling through this thing of Gentiles, but the law, but Christ, and so he's trying to help them work through those thoughts. So bear in mind that that's the context of the letter. Work your way through it, and we'll hopefully, Lord willing, see you tomorrow.